Some of the names that are used can have various connotations, but let's try and stay away from the interpretations and the specific applications, and let's think more in terms of the concept involved. Okay? And so, under the cardinal virtues, we have the cardinal virtue of justice. Okay, justice. A synonym for justice is truth. So justice is our understanding of truth in human law. Okay? And then we have a cardinal virtue of fortitude. Now keep in mind, justice and truth is ontological inside of us, whereas fortitude is our expression of our understanding of truth into the natural law environment, economy. Okay? So fortitude is in the economy. Fortitude is our expression of our understanding of truth in natural law. And so now we come down to divine law. And the cardinal virtue is prudence. Okay? And prudence it's actually a pretty good word. It has a lot of connotations. But prudence is really, it's kind of like ego. Ego is really a good synonym. Do you have too much ego or too little ego? And yes, you can fall off either side of the fence. Okay? But is your ego proportionate to what it should be in your relation to all of reality and all of human existence and all of your divine nature? Okay? So how well, how comfortable are you with your, with your being? And so it's our prudence is how we deal with trust in divine law. Okay? And so if we are prudent, then this is basically being trustworthy. Okay? Are we trustworthy? And then, if we bring trustworthiness into the economy, that would be called temperance. Okay? So what is our temperance like? When we are given authority as parents over children, or when we're given authority as a teacher in a classroom, okay, what is our level of temperance? What is our expression of our prudence in relation to others? Okay, so these are like your morals up here. These are like your ethics down here. And if you have bad morals, you probably have bad ethics, but we're looking at the positive right now. So, if your prudence has a benevolent nature, you intend the best for you and for yourself and others, okay, that would be a prudent kind of an attitude, okay? And then you would bring that into the environments. That would be your presentation of your authority. Now, so we receive authority from others. We've done numerous videos on that. We're not going to talk about all the ramifications. We're not going to talk about input and output too much, other than looking at the pure theology of how God set it up, how God aligns with it, and ideally, how we would grow and align ourselves with those things. Okay, so we would bring our prudence into the environment as temperance. And that's how we would deal with the issue of authority when we are put in a position of authority. Now, let's look at the other side of that. Just as there are 4 cardinal virtues, there are also 4 cardinal vices. And they correspond to the 4 laws. Okay? And so envy. Envy is kind of like the anti-virtue of justice. Envy is how we, in our mind, manipulate truth for personal gain. Okay? It's our purpose. So this is the purpose in philosophical discussion. This is the purpose in philosophical discussion. And if our purpose is envy, okay, so it's going to have some degree of untruth to it. and that's ontological inside of us. There's also a cardinal vice of wrath. Now again, this is one of those words, that has clearly, some pretty standard connotations that go with it. But stay away from the connotations. I would think that a good synonym here would be destruction. If you take your envy, if you take some untruth, intentional untruth into the environment, it will be destructive in some manner. Okay? And so the word that's used is wrath. Okay? But it's the concept that's involved. It's basically some untruth brought into the economy that has some negative effect. And then we come down to divine law, we come down to pride. The cardinal vice, pride, is anti-prudence. And of course, pride is probably the best word here. Pride is the mother of them all. We get that. Sigmund Freud called it ego. And of course, you can have too much ego, too little ego. Both are problematic. But generally speaking, too prideful is a problem. Thinking too much of yourself, elevating yourself above others, because keep in mind, we all have a divine nature. One divine nature is not superior to another divine nature. They're equal in their divinity. And so, if you elevate your significance above that of another, that is out of kilter in divine law. And if you break any of these laws, it's like breaking any law. It has a negative effect. Now, this one happens to be ontological, as does envy. It's ontological. Wrath is in the economy. Sloth is also in the economy. It's in the economy of eternal law. Now, again, slothful has, its own connotations with it. Oftentimes I use the word irresponsible. Okay, I use the word, the idea, the concept of not taking the responsibility that you should. You know better, but you don't do better. Or you should know better, but you don't know better. You just don't take personal responsibility. Keep in mind, these are personal things. This is the subjective moment in time. This is the objective moment in time. Okay? So these things are tangible. These are, or not our beliefs. But what is tangible is how we bring our beliefs into the economy. Okay? And what is tangible is how we bring our pride into relationship. Okay? So how we deal with objects in space, how we deal with self and others in time, is down here in these two laws. And so irresponsible would be a synonym I would use for slothful. It's knowing better but not doing better. It's you should know better but you don't because you were irresponsible to not know better. Okay. Now, let's take a look at how the cardinal virtues, and vices we'll get to in a minute, how the cardinal virtues line up with the theological virtues. Okay, now this is after 2,000 years more than 2,000 years of theological compilation. These are the words, these are the concepts. 4 laws, 4 virtues, 4 cardinal virtues. Okay? Matches up. 2 are ontological, 2 are economical. There's no denying it. 2 are ontological, 2 are economical. Now let's look at how the cardinal virtues line up with the theological virtues. The way we express truth in the natural law, okay, we discussed truth. As we express it in natural law, we call that fortitude. Our expression of truth in the natural law as fortitude is the degree that we reflect our faith. And keep in mind, our faith goes from the present all the way back to the point of creation. So our faith has to include the truth all the way back to creation. And the truth would prove that we happened somewhere along that line. That as a result of creation, we were given a life somewhere along the line. And so that represents our faith. All the way back to that point of creation, somewhere along the line. And so divinity, our lives, are a result of our faith. That's why your faith is saved. Ultimately, truth is the answer. Truth is ultimately the only eternal thing. You want to talk about eternal law, the only thing that's eternal is truth. Well, if we have faith in that truth of creation, that truth is going to carry on for all eternity. Nothing else is going to carry on for eternity except truth. That's why your faith is saved. Now, and we've heard of these theological virtues, faith, hope, and love, okay? And so we have our faith, we have our hope. Now, keep in mind our hope deals with these two laws, deals with divine law and eternal law. Hope deals with from this moment for all eternity, forward toward all eternity. And so, as much as our prudence and is presented as temperance, as much as our morals are exhibited as ethics, as much as they are good morals and good ethics, as much as this is our presentation of our being, of our soul, okay? We have our emotions, we have our heart, we bring that into the environment in an ethical way. As much as that lines up, that's how much that fuels our hope in the future, because we're hoping for relationship with God. And relationship, of course, is built upon trust. Our faith is built upon truth. Our hope is built upon trust. We trust that what God says is true. But again, we trust in the truth. The truth is not in the trust is in the truth. And so that's what takes you to the future. The truth is in the past, and the trust is in the future. And that's why these two deal with truth, and that's why truth in your faith, truth will set you free, but that's why your faith has saved you, because of truth. But your trust is what takes you into relationship, into the future. So, just as we have justice and fortitude, the way they manifest and represent our soul, that is the degree to which we have faith. And just as much as we have prudence that represents itself in terms of temperance, just as much as that represents our inner nature, our divine nature, our attitude, if you will, that is the degree to which we have hope. And it is the combination of our faith and our hope that produces love. Okay, so John in 1 Corinthians 13:13, now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Okay, and why is that? Well, for several reasons. One is once we get to heaven, we no longer need our faith. There will still be truth. And once we get to heaven, we will no longer need our hope, because who hopes for what they already have? Again, biblically stated. So these two become irrelevant in terms of those concepts. But what is left is truth and trust. And trust being relational. And so we have truth in the soul, in the body, in the being, if you will. Okay? There is truth in the being. There's a tripartite being built of intellect, free will, intent, if you will, and some form of existence. Okay? That would be truth. But then the state of being is in its trustworthiness. And so love, because God is love, okay? And so God's state of being is love. And so God is omnipresent, and so his state of being is love, and he's present. And if we are present in his presence in the present, we are in love. And so that's why God is love, and that's why the greatest of these theological virtues is love. Is that we are in a state of existence. We are in a state of existence in the presence of God. And God is love. And we are present in his presence. And that puts us in a state of love. Again, we have a being. It's our state of being. We have a being. But our state of being is either going to be here or elsewhere. And so let's look at the really side nobody wants to talk about. So, if your envy is expressed in a destructive manner in the economy, okay, you want something for yourself that you don't deserve, it's not rightfully yours, you want more than you should have, whatever. If your envy is stated in terms of wrath, okay, so that those two cardinal vices combined result in the theological vice of greed. And the cardinal vices of pride and sloth. Okay, you think too much of yourself, and you don't take personal responsibility. Okay, and again, the words can be different. They use the word lust. It's very descriptive. And of course, it has to do with the subjects. These deal with persons, and these deal with truth, objects in space. These deal with people and time. Okay? And so, yeah, if you put yourself above others, if you don't take personal responsibility, then you're kind of like taking advantage of another person. So, yeah, that could be a good definition for lust. And so, if in divine law and eternal law, if these are your expression, if pride is your expression in a slothful manner in eternal law, that results in a theological virtue of lust. And so if your envy is expressed as wrath, that results in your theological vice of greed. Okay? And if you have greed and lust as a representation of your state of being, okay, again, you have a state of being, but if greed and lust represent your state of being, then your state of being is in a state of gluttony. And that state of gluttony is a very isolated, inward-looking place. It is void of relationship. Whereas, if your state of being is love, then that is relation. Okay, so your state of being, you will have a being, you will have a name, but your state of being is either in love or your state of being is in gluttony. And those are the two endpoints. Again, why are people interested in theology? Because it is the most profound question that everyone searches the answer to. And that is, where does life come from and where does life go? And we are all theologians. So why don't we come up with some common concepts of how we discuss these matters? And so these are, and this presentation, this is the 54th presentation. These presentations are more than 5 decades in research, has culminated in this very presentation. And I know that I've been led by God to this presentation. And I am hoping that God will bless this presentation and that it will be fruitful in the lives of others. Thank you very much.